As an agile business analyst, slicing and dicing user stories is always confusing, cumbersome, and time-consuming. Today's video, we will cover another important topic, how to slice and dice requirements, or what is the right size of a user story. What all things should be kept in mind while slicing and dicing user stories. In the last video, we have covered how to write a user story properly. For those who haven't watched part 1 or want to watch it again, then I have given the link to that on the top right corner along with the description. The most common mistake that I have seen while writing user stories are the stories end up very big or very vague. Remember the discussion we had in the last video, the story has to be small, individually consumable, and deliverable in a sprint. When you end up writing big user stories, you end up breaking this. So slicing and dicing user stories is very important. I will be explaining this using a product details page of an e-commerce website. If you look at the front end of the product details page, it will have a lot of different elements like name of the product, images, description, price, etc. This information has to be saved somewhere or has to be part of some integrations. In order to create the affinity, put the dependent systems or areas directly below that. For example, product name, description, and images are saved in the back end of our e-commerce application, while the price of the product comes from a third-party system as part of an integration. Let's take an example and see how we can do this. I believe most of us have purchased something online and are familiar with shoes. Hence, I am taking an example of a shoe e-commerce website. Imagine we have to develop this page, meaning we have to write stories for this page. If you write one story for the entire page, then it will be too big. Hence, that approach is not advised. So how can we slice and dice this page into different functional pieces? So let's look at some of the elements on this page. Product name, product description, product images, price. This is where the affinity diagram will come in handy and will help you in finding out the dependencies with each of the functional areas. If you plot the features and dependent systems, then your affinity diagram for the product details page will be ready. Let's start with front end, as we saw earlier. The front end has features like product name, description, product images, price, etc. These features must be saved somewhere in our application so that we can show them on the front end. The product name, description, and images has to be entered in the back end by someone, then only that can be shown in the front end. While price is something that might be coming from a third-party systems, this is the affinity or relationship of functionalities in a product details page. Before moving on to writing user stories, create personas for each of these areas. Let's name the front-end user persona as Pam, back-end persona as Jeff, third-party integration as Anna. Now, let's go to one of the sports brands and check the product details page of shoes. If you look at the PDP page, it is a page with a lot of different elements. The affinity diagram will help you understand the relationships between these sections. Let's try creating an affinity diagram for this page. As a first step, let's identify the different elements of this page like name, price, reviews, color selection, size selection, width of the shoes, product images. When you scroll down on the same page, you will see add to cart with shipping options, product details, etc. Now, let's put these features in our affinity diagram. All the features that we have seen in the last slide are available on the front end, so let's plot them as front-end features. As we discussed earlier, let's imagine data for the features like product name, description, images, size selection, width selection, and color selection has to be saved in the back end, while the price, reviews, and shipping options that you see in the front end is coming from third-party integrations. This gives you a view of which all features have dependencies with other systems or features. This is not just helpful in writing the stories, but this will help the entire team to understand the dependencies and functionalities easily. Now, let's see how you can slice and dice features into stories that are according to the invest method. You could use horizontal or vertical slicing. First, look at horizontal slicing. We can slice this affinity diagram according to the systems. With horizontal slicing, we work on one system at a time, or different teams work on different systems. There will be a team working for the front end, another team for back end, and a different team for third-party integrations. This might seem very efficient, but to manage this, we will have management overhead. We would need someone to align all these activities and make sure the systems are integrated correctly. This is where things will go wrong. Hence, I won't recommend horizontal slicing for agile projects. So let's look at vertical slicing. In vertical slicing, we slice the whole application vertically and create small functionalities that go across the application. This method is the base of agile methodology, and this works very well with user stories.letQuoteS. Take an example to see how we can do this. Hope you remember our product details page where we marked all the small pieces in it. Before creating the stories, remember our personas for each of the areas. Now create stories from the perspective of these personas. Our first story will be the product name and see if this is part of any other systems. You can see that this is part of backend also. This data has to be entered or managed in the backend by Jeff. This means if you create a story for just the front end, then this won't work. So your story should have both the backend and the front end mentioned in it. The story could look like this. Let's pick review as our next story. If you look at our affinity diagram, you can see that this has a dependency with the third-party review platform. So when you write the story for review, it should include both front-end and third-party integration pieces in it. If the integration is complex, then you could create multiple user stories. You could create one user story from the perspective of Anna for integration, and one user story from the perspective of Pam for taking the data from that integration and showing it in the front end. Using this affinity diagram, you could easily identify the dependencies and slice and dice your user stories properly. The benefits of using an affinity diagram are: helps you identify the relationships between concepts and ideas, helps categorize facts, opinions, and issues to diagnose problems and find common issues, helps you in your persona creation, helps you in writing user stories properly, helps the team in getting the bigger picture easily. These are some of the benefits of using affinity diagrams. If you got the concept, then start practicing this in your project. As the saying goes, practice makes perfect. Also, I hope you got clarity about how to slice and dice user stories properly. Try to practice this as much as you can in your daily work. If you have questions or any assistance needed, please feel free to ask them in the comments section. I will try to help you with that.